is Sportscasters Anonymous, a weekly podcast about sports, all sports, MLB, the NBA, the NFL, the NHL, collegiate football, and collegiate basketball.
But there's more.
We'll even talk about sports video games, sports movies. It's all here. You're listening to Sportscasters Anonymous on the Random Chatter Network, broadcasting to the globe from Jacksonville, Florida. This is Don and Chip.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Don, he's Chip. You are listening to Sportscasters Anonymous. Today's show is being recorded on May 10th, 2020. It's Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Chip, we're back for another show. How's it going, man?
It's going well. One thing I've realized after doing the notes for all these shows is no matter what type of week we have, there's a lot to talk about. There's
always a lot to talk about.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things to just talk about. Like, I didn't really realize how much there is to talk about in sports until I started doing the notes for these, and I found like articles after articles. I'm like, oh, we could talk about this. Oh, we could talk about that. I'm like, well, I mean, we got to keep it within an hour, so we're gonna try to do that. But like I said, there's some housekeeping stuff that we need to go over. So, like always, you can contact us. Our emails. Mine's chip@randomchatter.com, or you can contact Don at don@randomchatter.com. You can follow our Twitter at Sportcastanon, ANON. You can always join our Discord at Random Chatter, and you can support us on Patreon and buy our stuff. randomchatter.com/store. Don, I almost always say Discord wrong. I don't know why, but I always say it wrong.
I noticed
First time,
that.
And I catch myself.
For the first couple of weeks, you were doing our Twitter at Sportscastanon, ANON, and I'm like, there's no S in sport. There's no S on the end, not at the beginning.
Oh, I didn't even realize that. It's just how it came out.
That's okay. That's fine.
Anyways,
we're
moving
4 episodes in. We're still working on it. Everybody's bearing with us. But hey, man, let's as always, as we've been starting off the last couple of weeks, let's hit up the NFL updates, man. What you got for us this week?
Yeah, so the 2020 schedule came out this week, and they did it. Some certain teams had fun with it, and they did it virtually. Usually they go on and they announce it through like a news conference or something along those lines, or ESPN will produce it. But there was some people that like the Jaguars, they did a cat video, so they did their entire schedule and they had cat memes for each week. If you haven't seen the video, it's on Instagram and it's on ESPN. It was actually pretty hilarious. I got a good kick out of it. You also had Frank Caliendo do an impersonation of different coaches, which he's an comedian that can do impersonations, and he's pretty hilarious, and he does an amazing John Gruden. It's actually phenomenal.
Is he on the money with that?
Yeah, he actually that's like the main person he does, and it's pretty on spot. If you know John Gruden, it's very much on there. And he also does Andy Reid is on there that he impersonates. And ultimately, I think his best by far is John Madden. He does a very good John Madden, but he's an ESPN and paid impersonation guy. I don't know what they're really called, but he
voice actor.
Voice, yeah, sure, that works.
We'll go with that.
Yeah, he did a video where he went over all of the coaches in parentheses coaches reactions to their schedule. There was a lot of different things that I got from it. One of the major things that, and maybe it's just me being an Eagles fan that annoys the hell out of me, is the fact that for some reason, no matter what it is, no matter how bad or how good their team is, Dallas seems to always have the majority of the primetime games. And it annoys me so much because I do not want to watch them play every week.
So is that the way that the Eagles get the primetime? 2 of them thanks to Dallas?
I guess.
At least
I don't know.
One?
like we only had, I think we have 3 primetime games, and one of them is against Dallas. So most of our games are at 1:00, which is when the majority of games are. And Dallas is I thought it actually had something to do with the fact that they're in Central Time. So like they're like, oh, we don't want people to wake up super early and watch these games. But then like the Raiders, who are all the way on the East Coast, they have 6 games at 1:00. So they have 6 10 a.m. games, which is terrible. Like I mean, it doesn't mind, but you're not going to get a good tailgate in if you got to wake up and then the game's at 10. Like you're going to have to wake up at like 4 a.m. just to get to the stadium.
No,
So
thank you. No, thank you.
yeah,
I love my football, but I'm sorry that no.
yeah. So Dallas got 5 Sunday or Monday night games. They were tied for the most with the Ravens and the Buccaneers, which I can see the Ravens and I can see the Buccaneers because of Tom Brady and Gronkowski and all that hype. But they got 5 of them. Those were the most. Like I said, they only had 5 1:00 games, which I think is ridiculous because you're going to see Joe Buck and Troy Aikman do every single Dallas game, which is annoying as hell. They're so biased; it's not even funny.
Geez, Troy Aikman being biased with Dallas. No, say it ain't so.
You have to understand, like in Philadelphia, we watch these games and we most of the people that are in the city will mute the TV and play the radio over top of it because they just can't stand Joe Buck and Troy Aikman with them and the way they call the games.
It's
so
that
like
bad.
it's a running. It's not even say it's a running joke, but it's a running like known thing in Philadelphia that you just don't listen to Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, or you just can't stand them. Like Joe Buck, I'm not as up on Joe Buck. Like I don't like hate him as much, but I can't stand Troy Aikman. Like him and Chris Collinsworth are like on the same level of like they have so much bias where they'll like say one thing that is just against the other team, or they'll just keep saying things that are like cutting the other team up, and I don't know. I don't still think they're good like analyzers of the game. The other thing was the Monday night, the opening Monday night games because they do a doubleheader. I found very weak. It's Pittsburgh versus the Giants is the first game, and then Tennessee versus Denver. Like, I have no interest to see any of those 4 teams play at all in any stretch of the means. Like, what do you think?
They know something that we don't. How do I put this? The schedule makers are. Here's a good analogy for the schedule makers in the NFL. It's like politics in the U.S. You're not going to please everybody. But as I'm looking through the Monday night schedule, I can see some games in there that look pretty interesting. And then I'm looking at some other games going, what were they thinking? For example, week 9, you've got the Patriots at the Jets on Monday night.
Exactly. Like
crickets.
Like there's no Tom Brady on the Patriots. So, and the Jets are no like prize trophy to play against. Like that's going to be that there are certain games that, like during the year when they would come up on Monday night, I'm like, and for those listeners that don't know, me and Don do a lot of fantasy, DraftKings fantasy. So we bet on Monday night games, and we'll go to each other before the game and be like, man, this is a tough game. There's like nobody to pick on either team to play because they're just so bad. So like,
but you're not going to play the game, of course. We're going to play the game regardless.
Yeah, because you get extra things when you like extra.
You get rewarded for it.
Rewards, yeah, for playing every day or every weekend and everything like that. So like, we're not going to play the game, but at the same time, it's just like you're looking at the game. You're like, why did they choose these 2 teams? It's like, like when by the time they get, you said it was week 9. Like by the time they get to that, they're probably going to be like 2 and 6 teams at that point. It's like 2 and 6 teams. Like, how is that going to, at any way, shape, or form, make the ratings better? They have Tom Brady versus Drew Brees on the opening weekend.
That's going to be great. I think it's going to be a great game.
It's going to be a good game. The opening game that they have, the Thursday night game that they have is I believe it's the Chiefs versus the Texans. I believe is opening
Rematch.
Day. Yeah.
That's going to be a hot game right there on Thursday night, no less.
Yeah, it's the like opening game that they have on Thursday night.
That's going to be a tough
So
one to put the money on. I'm going to tell you that now. You and I are going to have probably about 2 weeks worth of debate to figure out the best rosters for digital fantasy for that game, for daily fantasy.
yeah, that's gonna be one of the more closer games. Although at the same breath, the Texans are without DeAndre Hopkins now, so that's a big difference. They
Yeah,
kind of
but
tore
they
the team
still
up.
have their quarterback.
That's true. Yeah, and it's
Yes.
like, do you want to bet all that money on Mahomes because he's going to be really,
Gonna be hot,
high
man.
priced. Yeah, he's going to be high priced in that game, and it's like you bet on him, but at the same time, you really don't. I was surprised that the Bills' schedule was actually very favorable.
Hey,
They had one
before
of the they had
favorable.
one yes. So I was looking at the Bills schedule, and they're predicted to go 12-4. I mean, I looked at them mostly because you're a Bills fan, so I looked at the Bills go 12-4, and
Thank you.
I mean, I'm looking at the teams that they play, and San Francisco is going to be tough. Kansas City is going to be tough. I don't really see any other like speed bumps that you guys have to go through. And it's like I think the team that's getting so much hype that's overrated is Seattle. I think Seattle is not going to be that good at all this year. They're predicted to go 11-5. They have 4 primetime games. I think that they are a 9-7, 8-8 team this year. I do not think that they're going to be that good. Uh, and that's just my opinion. And the other interesting thing about the schedule is they do strength of schedule, which for the people that don't know, they take all the teams' records from last year and the teams that they're playing and
To
match up the
to ele-
schedule.
to elaborate on that as well, I'm sorry. I'm
It's
getting
fine.
ahead of you, but not just last year's record, but based on draft picks, did teams fill needs and whatnot. So it's kind of like speculation in the stock market.
Yeah, so yeah, and they take all together, and then they're like, okay, this is the strength of schedule for next year, or what they perceive it to be, or at least the initial one. And the Chiefs, I think, had the easiest schedule out of all of them, which was mind blowing to me. And you'll be happy to hear this. Patriots had the toughest, so that was kind of like the breakdown of it. And I think that a lot of that also has to do with like who's in your division. So like a lot of the teams that are with like the Steelers, the Chiefs, the Browns, who their teams were like 8-8, and they got to play each one of them twice. Most of their schedule is not going to be as big or as top heavy as some of the other teams that have to play in divisions where there's like 2 11-5 teams
Right.
or something like that. So sometimes the strength of schedule can be a good evaluation of the schedule, but at the same time, it can't be. Like teams that are playing the Patriots this year, even though the Patriots were really good last year, they don't have Tom Brady this year. Like, are they going to be as good as they were last year? One of the matchups that I'm going to be looking forward to, it's a little bit later in the year, is week 15. It's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs versus New Orleans. I think that might be a preview of the Super Bowl. Many other people are predicting, if the Chiefs go back to the Super Bowl, they would end up playing New Orleans. You also have the Chiefs in week 12 who play the Buccaneers, which will
That is going to
be
be
interesting.
awesome. Oh
So
yeah.
Mahomes versus Brady, and then you have week 3 is the Chiefs versus the Ravens. So the Chiefs actually have a lot of they have a lot of bad teams that they're playing, but they have a lot of good teams that they're playing. Like I said, the Texans and on week 1 they have Baltimore, they have the Buccaneers, and they have New Orleans. I mean, they're still predicted to be one of the best teams in the league, which rightfully so. They're bringing all their starters back from last year and not didn't have much roster turnaround, which is always good. So they're predicted to go 12-4. But those are just some of the things that I got from the schedule when I was initially looking at it. I don't know if you were able to look at it at all, or you have any thoughts on or
I
predictions on it.
I went through the overall schedule a little bit, looked at the Monday Night Football schedule. When I was reading the Monday Night Football schedule, I paused to have a drink. Because I was like, okay, you know what, though? As much as that you try to do all these predictions, some of those games could turn out to be good games, as injuries happen during the season, or one team that didn't expect to do that well gels or whatnot. So the schedule for Monday night on the outside, as we're seeing it now, I'm sitting there going, I'm not impressed. But that might change. I did go over Buffalo's schedule. I was so thrilled. I think it was 4 primetime games. Do you know how long it's been for Buffalo? I mean, it's usually difficult to get 1 primetime game. We got 4. 4.
Yeah,
I was like, all right.
I did read that. Yeah, I did read that. They were like teams that I read an article saying like teams that should be happy with the schedule, and Buffalo was one of them. They're like, yeah, they got 4 primetime games. They've been clamoring for that for years, but because of the Patriots, they haven't been able to get that many primetime games. So now they got all the primetime games. The question is going to be whether you guys actually show up to perform during those primetime games.
All right, one step at a time. I'm happy we got them. So we're hang on. I'm gonna do my NFL coach impersonation here. We're just taking it week to week. We're not looking ahead at the schedule. We're just gonna look at the week in front of us, and we're gonna go from there. How'd I do?
That was great.
Thank you.
So I think you're gonna see a lot of teams that did really well last year that aren't going to do well this year. 49ers, I don't think are going to be something special this year. I don't think Seattle's going to be something special this year. I think New Orleans versus the Chiefs, New Orleans versus the Ravens could be the Super Bowl.
It's assuming the Chiefs don't get, or excuse me, assuming the Saints don't get hosed on a call in the playoffs, right?
They don't go. We're gonna keep that out of it, Don. We're not gonna go down that road because that's
not right now.
Shaky road. Shaky road.
Yes, it is. We love all the fans of all the teams out there.
Yeah.
Right, Chip? We're not going to talk about bias towards one team or another because we could dedicate a whole show for you to that.
We could dedicate a whole 4 or 5 hours to that. But anyways, I mean, I was pretty happy when the Saints blew it in 2017 because we ended up playing the Vikings and they were a lot easier of an opponent than the Saints would have been. So I'm quite happy with that, how that turned out.
Exactly.
Miracle, right. What was it? Miracle. What was the phrase that they called it? I forget, but it was like Miracle in Minnesota Miracle or something like that.
Yeah, great, wasn't it?
Yeah, when he caught the ball and ran it because they stepped out of bounds, or they didn't step out of bounds, or Stephon Diggs didn't step out of bounds or something like that. Yeah, so I was quite overjoyed with that one.
Sure.
So moving on, I think that's enough with the schedule. You can always read it on ESPN or read it on CBS Sports.
Everywhere.
Yeah, there's actually if you're looking for a breakdown of how the schedule is actually formulated and the whole way it works, you can go on CBS Sports. They have a good article where they break down on how the schedule is put together and why one division plays another division and how the top 2 teams play the bottom 2 teams in the other division and how they go and strictly stick to the rules of everything. So
before we move on from football, I did wanted to throw out there, it is big news in the football world, was Don Shula passing away. He is one of the greatest NFL coaches of all time. With him coaching the Dolphins for as long as he did, I was heartbroken to hear the news. He was a very successful coach, and I got to see his coaching style and got to see what he could do. Being a fan of Buffalo, I actually attended a few Miami games in Buffalo when Don Shula was coaching. The guy was a class act through all of it. If you read the news about him, or anybody that knew him talked about him, the guy was a class act, 100%. So it was sad to hear the news. The football world was really rocked by that. He had a lot of influence on a lot of players and coaches. So it was pretty sad to hear, but hey, Miami Dolphins fans and football fans in general, the NFL lost a great one.
Yep. So let me ask you this, because you got to see both coaches. Who do you think was a better coach, Don Shula or Bill Belichick?
I did not get to attend a Belichick coached game. I was already getting ready to pack up and leave New York when Belichick started on with the Patriots. The normal argument for greatness in the NFL and Hall of Famers and blah, blah, blah. And it's like what anybody does today with any sport. How many rings, right? Belichick's got a whole fistful. Don Shula only got a couple. But when you look at it, especially the way it is now, Shula coached the Dolphins, I think, for 25, 30 years? Something like that. That's unheard of now. You will not see that now, with the exception of maybe a couple of coaches, Belichick being one of them. To have that, to be that good of a coach, to coach, you work with what you got and to keep going and whatnot. So I don't just look at rings alone. I think that's a poor indicator. What I will say is I am happy that Shula and not Belichick, they both had perfect seasons, regular seasons, but that Dolphins team is still the only perfect season altogether on record. So that is an extra amazing accomplishment on his part.
Yep. One thing I do want to say, I want to correct myself. I did say that the Chiefs had the easiest schedule. I take that back. Baltimore has the easiest schedule, which makes sense because they have Cleveland and Cincinnati and the Pittsburgh in their division. All three of them were not good last year. But
Pittsburgh's a big question mark right now.
Yeah, I think Pittsburgh's going to be a lot better. I mean, you're going to get Ben Roethlisberger back, so that's going to definitely...
That's the reason
help.
I put the question mark there.
They
will have Big Ben back, but
so.
Yeah. So, hey, man, let's jump into some NBA, and you can go ahead and tell me. I still haven't watched it, and I'm getting a lot of heat from people for it, but I've just been extremely, extremely busy. My day consists of getting up, getting ready for work, going to work, coming home, dealing with whatever I have to work with my family. I have a son about to graduate, whatnot. I have no time for TV. So I'm going to lean on you again. Tell us about the current episodes of The Last Dance.
I mean, at this point, you're going to get to a point where you're just going to have to, take an entire day where no one's going to bother you and watch all 9 episodes because we're getting up to it.
Okay. Sure.
Like they just did episode 5 and 6 last week. They're doing 7 and 8 tonight, and then I believe the last one's going to be next week. But so I watched the 5th and the 6th episode earlier this week. It was a lot more like the first 4 episodes, I would say, were a lot more informative and a lot more like, wow, this team is amazing. Like, there's nothing that can stop them. Like they built this huge dynasty, and it's just going to keep going. The 5th and 6th had like a different, not want to say message, but a different. I can't think of the right word, but it told the story a little bit differently. So they start off with where it starts off after they win the. I believe the second championship is where it starts off, and it's the year of the dream team, and they talk about Jordan and how it's after the first championship, not the second one, the first championship.
Okay.
And where he finally won it against Magic Johnson, and it leaped his career into superstardom, and how he hadn't really signed with a shoe company yet, and he was supposed to start signing with a shoe company. And he went to a few of them, and they weren't going to basically give him what he wanted or pay him what he wanted, or they weren't going to make the shoe the way he wanted it, because they made shoes differently back then. And they say in the film that he originally wanted to sign with Adidas, but Adidas didn't make basketball shoes. They made running shoes at the time. So they
missed the boat on that one.
Yeah, he was like, I wanted to sign with them. I liked their shoes. I like how they were made. I liked everything about them, but they They just didn't make the shoe that they didn't make basketball shoes. So they're like, oh, not really us. And then Nike, who was this at the time, wasn't this really well-known shoe. Like they made a couple of shoes, but that was it. They signed him to like, they said it was some ridiculously insane deal. Like they essentially like overpaid at the time for him, but like obviously it's Jordan, and we can look back and look in hindsight, and they definitely underpaid for what he did for that company, because he basically made them relevant and made Nike the force it is today. And they came out with the whole concept of Air Jordan, and they showed some of the commercials of that they had back then with him just like flying and like, hey, be like Mike, and that's where Be Like Mike came from. Then it goes into and talks about the Dream Team and how that was put together. And they put a little quip in there about how Jordan, and he comes out and says it. He goes, "I hate Isaiah Thomas."
Wow,
and
really? Just outright said it.
He says it. Jordan, like that's the one thing I liked about this whole entire thing is they don't pull punches. Like everything is completely honest. Like they say what they feel. Whether they do have a censored version of it, so it's like they bleep out the bad words, and then they have a non-censored that you can watch where they don't bleep out some of the stuff. And
so what was his beef with Isaiah Thomas? Briefly.
Well, he was part of the Bad Boys. So like the way
that's right.
What really hurt Jordan was when they lost, how they walked off the court before the game ended. He thought that was low class, and Isaiah Thomas has one way of like saying like, this is why we did it, and Jordan's like, no, you did it, like, and says a different way. And it's one of those things that like Jordan says, he's like, I respect his game and I respect everything he's done, but I hate the guy. Like he doesn't like the person he likes, like, and I can understand that. He respects his career. He just doesn't like him as a person, and sometimes you're gonna get that, and they both understand that, and that the whole thing was like they spent a good like 20 minutes explaining like, oh, the reason that Isaiah Thomas wasn't on the Dream Team was because Jordan didn't want him on the team, and Jordan was like, that's not true. I wasn't the only, like, basically Jordan's like, I wasn't the only guy that didn't get along with him, and they didn't put him on the team basically because he didn't get along with a lot of guys on the team, and they didn't want to have that clash of players.
Well, especially on like the biggest stage of all at the Olympics. So that's the last thing in the world you want to do is like, oh, it looks like there's a little trouble at Team USA.
Yeah, and it's the first time that they had NBA players playing. It was the quote-unquote Dream Team. They had Barkley, they had Bird, they had Magic Johnson, they had Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and it would have been too much clashing. And then they go on to further talk about the only team that year that was actually going to compete with them was Croatia, who they met in the first game, and the big star for Croatia was Toni Kukoc, and how the Bulls had recruited Toni Kukoc to come to Chicago, and Jerry Krause, who was the GM of the Bulls, was going to be like, hey, I want you to come in. You're going to end up replacing Scottie Pippen. Well, Jordan didn't like that. Pippen didn't like that. So the first game, they made it a major point to shut Toni Kukoc down and just pretty much, I don't want to say play bully ball, but like, hey, welcome to the NBA kind of thing.
So that was more like a save face type of thing for them.
Yeah, they were basically just going to you get the sense throughout the entire all the episodes that Jordan and the team did not like the GM, which is pretty unheard of because I don't know of any teams that don't like their GM or the players that don't like their GM. And maybe that's just me. I don't think of any, but this and this might be like during the times you didn't really hear about it, but like coming out now, they're like, there was so much animosity between the GM and the team that like Jordan and Pippen and all the guys in the team did things that were going to throw it in the face of the GM. So like they made a point to, shut down Toni Kukoc. Like they showed it. He had he was supposed to be he was their leading scorer. He was averaging like 25 points over in Europe. And like the first game they played on, they shut him out. He didn't have any points. He had 0 points. I think he was like a 0 stat line, and he played like the majority of the game. So like they like shut him down. It was like 0 points and like 5 rebounds or something like that. It wasn't like anything great, but they were like they made a point to like
at that point. Jeez.
Yeah, they're like they made it a point to like they were double teaming him. They were like they had like 3 guys on him. Like they made it a point like he was their team. So like they made a point to like we're gonna shut him down and we're not gonna let him score.
Wow.
They ended up facing Croatia in the finals, and Kukoc I think had like 20 points or something like that in the finals. Like he actually came and played a lot better. But even he said he's like when I first went in there and they started playing me, like he's like it was a culture shock for me because it was definitely a different level of basketball that he wasn't used to.
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes on to talk about they win their second championship, and Jordan's still in the superstardom, and there was at the time in North Carolina there was and I'm not going to try to get too much into the politics part of it, but I'm just going to explain what the situation was. There was a incumbent white governor who was there, and then there was a black governor who was running for it, who was trying to overtake him, and they kept trying to get Jordan to endorse the African American governor, and he wouldn't get involved in the politics of it, and the African American governor ended up losing, and people believe that if Jordan had supported him or came out and endorsed him, that he would have
Oh,
won.
jeez.
So like they kind of throw
Oh,
that in there,
boy.
which I'm like, okay, it is what it is. Like I don't want to get involved in all that kind of stuff and say something about
Yeah.
that. Like I don't know the whole situation, but they did say that. And Jordan kind of made a couple of comments. You can watch the video if you want to really go into it, but it was what it was. But moving on from that, they then went through the second championship, and after the second championship, there was a book that came out that was, I believe it's by Sam Smith. It was called Jordan Rules, and it was basically chronicling the 92 season and aired out a lot of Jordan's laundry. There were some things in there that said like Horace Grant like missed the layup or wasn't giving enough effort in practice, so Jordan would tell like the waiters and waitresses or the stewardess like, oh, he doesn't get served dinner, like and stuff like that.
Jesus.
Like
Wow,
like
just like little petty stuff.
yeah, like oh, he was dogging it in that game and he missed rebounds, or they were saying that like Jordan wouldn't pass people the ball at the end of the game. Like it was like petty stuff. Now I don't know how true that stuff is. It was put in the book. And it was basically there was some rumblings that people didn't like how Jordan was pretty much monopolizing the team. And it was one of those things where nobody really came out and said like, hey, we set like one person was like the scapegoat that was feeding all this stuff. They were basically like a lot of it was false. And they don't know where they got it from. Everyone believed it was Horace Grant who had said it, and he was like, I didn't say any of that stuff. So they really don't know who the source of all this information was. But the lot of the I believe it's more episode 6 was about Jordan's like dirty laundry. Like they talked about how I believe it was in the 92 championship, how he, in the middle of it, decided to go to Atlantic City, and they spent a good like half hour talking about Jordan's gambling and how he might have a gambling addiction, and like how can you during the NBA championship series go to Atlantic City when you're in the middle of this, like he was down I think 2-0, and he was like, I just needed time to get away, and he was like he was like in Atlantic City till like 1 a.m. and then he had a game the next night. Like there was a lot of things like that. They were trying to like he was so much on a pedestal that people start to find things that are gonna knock him down and
Right.
bring him down. So
of course, I mean, if you're on a pedestal like that in any sport, in at the time he was the face of the NBA, much like LeBron could be now,
yeah,
So like when you're on that pedestal, there are people that are just going to be like, he's the man. There's going to be other people that are just be like, well, I heard this, I heard that, knock it down. Probably one of the reasons why back in the day you didn't like scuffles with the GM or like some of the dirty laundry in any sport. This, you followed sports long enough in your life to know this. When you're winning, nobody says anything, nobody cares. When you start losing, it all starts to come out. Or after you retire, whatever the case.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, a lot of it, like, and they go on and explain about how Jordan would always play card games and betting card games, and they're like, one guy got arrested for, like, a friend of Jordan's got arrested for embezzlement or something like that, and Jordan gave him a $57,000 check, where Jordan said it was an investment, but it was really to pay off a gambling debt that he had. And people were, in all honesty, I think people were just making more out of it than
what it really
what
was.
they need. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
there was like, we need to find something. Like, this guy isn't perfect. We need to find something. So they did that. Like the same thing is like we like to gamble. Like, I don't say that we have a gambling addiction. We just have fun gambling, and we know our limits. And that was kind of like Jordan. Jordan's like, and they do go on to say that they're like, he's getting multi-million-dollar deals. So like, what a $57,000 check to him is like.
Yeah. It's like me giving you $5
for us.
You know?
Yeah, it's there. You got to look at it in perspective and look at it that way.
Yeah.
So that was I think they were just, the whole series is all stating the facts. So they were going on about the facts, and they were interviewing different people, and they explained it this way. And I think it was to give you more of a background of like, hey, Jordan has his vices. Like, he does like to gamble, like he has fun and all this kind of stuff, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he's less of a player because of it. Like, you can't be that perfect all the time. Like, there are a lot of great players in the game that had their quote unquote dirty laundry, or have had their vices. Like, I don't think Jordan is a gambling, like, addicted to gambling. I think he likes to, he's competitive, and he likes to, like, bet and stuff like that. Like, that's him. Like, as long as it doesn't get over excessive, like where he's running out of money or anything like that, I don't think
you don't hear stories in the
it.
media like, he's broke because of gambling issues and whatnot. I mean, he knows his limits. So, to each his own. That was his way of blowing off some steam and whatever, then okay.
Yeah, like that, like, I mean, like, and when he went to Atlantic City and people made all this sort of thing about it, and then he ended up winning the series. Like, okay, like,
So what was the problem?
The same thing as like Rodman, like, what with some of the stuff he did. Like, you gotta blow off steam at sometimes, and then come back refocused.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta take that break. You can't
had
go
they
100% all the time.
Had you lost the series, that's different, but they won.
Yeah.
And I mean, quite honestly, these pro athletes, if they go, you know what, had a tough day after practice today, I'm going to go do my thing and go, like, go to Atlantic City, or if I'm in Vegas, go out and gamble till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Oh, well, you've got a tip off at 8:15, how can you be doing that? 8:15 p.m. You know what? If that's what allows me to get out and kind of unwind and maybe refocus or just let off steam and whatnot, to me, shoot. I mean, I do that, a tough day at work, whatever. I need to unwind, whatever, jump in, play some video games or whatever, or, DraftKings when sports are running and whatnot, and look at some analytics. And you know what? That's what I do to unwind. So, and it doesn't affect my work the next day. If I'm staying up till midnight, 1 a.m. to watch the late game, and I'm aware that I have to be at work at 9 a.m. If I think I can do it and I can handle it, then who are you to judge?
Yeah, and they put it all in perspective too, because it was like, they went through the 91 season, he won the NBA championship 91, then they had the Olympics, then he went right into the 92 season, and like, so you didn't really ever have a break. So like, for him, that was kind of like his, like, I need a break right now, like, I'm not really as focused as I should be in the games. So that was that was another big part of it. The last part of the episode 6 was they talked about the last All-Star game that he went to, which was the first one for Kobe Bryant. So they did a little, I won't say montage of Kobe, but they did a little Jordan Kobe action, and how Jordan's talking about Kobe in the locker room before the All-Star game. And he's like,
I saw
he's like,
that.
he's like, have you guys? He's to ask the players, have you guys heard about this LA kid from or this kid from LA, Kobe Bryant, and like, kind of like, who is this kid, like, and like how he's turning heads and everything like that, which was pretty cool. They also,
Jordan in the locker room, from what I understand, just decided they were going to take Kobe to school. Yeah,
that was it. He was like, we're going to show this kid how we do things, like how the veterans do it, and then they cut to an interview with Kobe, and obviously it was before he tragically passed away, but he talks about how Jordan was like his big brother, and that he would never have been the player that he is or the player that he was if it wasn't for Jordan. So like, Jordan had his mentors that kind of helped teach him the game, like Bird and Magic Johnson.
Right.
Kobe's big mentor was Michael Jordan, and he like after the game they like shook hands and they exchanged numbers, and Jordan was like to Kobe, if you ever need anything, if you have questions or advice or anything like that, you want to bounce anything or you need help with the game, he's like, just call me, let me know. Which was pretty cool. That there's that camaraderie between players, but yeah, so that was a nice good moment about how they went through it, he was also Jordan was the MVP of the All-Star game, so they kind of did a little plug in about that and how his last year with the Bulls, he was the MVP of the All-Star game, and they're like everyone's like, don't leave, Jordan, don't leave. So and then they did give the Knicks some love, so I want to throw that in there too. They talked about how the Knicks went to the Eastern Conference Championships and gave the Bulls a run for their money. So I want to throw that in there for you.
It's been decades since they've been good, but I'm managing somehow.
Yeah, it might have been the last time they went to the Eastern Conference Championship. But hey, who's counting on those? But that's basically a synopsis of the episode 5 and 6. Like I said, they have 7 and 8 coming up tonight. They actually just released them, so we'll move on from there because I think I beat that to
that's
dead
fine.
horse.
So what's up with the conference call?
So they had a conference call in NBA this past Friday. They want the season to start in one location.
Bet they do.
So they're gonna start it in 2 different locations. They don't want to have people traveling cross country, so they're gonna have it in Orlando and Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
They're predicting by June that they're gonna start training camp, and then by the mid to end June that they're going to start playing these games, and that they're going to start it in 2 different locations until they get the logistics down, and then they're going to start maybe opening it up to other locations.
Depending on state laws and whatnot, of course.
Correct. They already said that the next season won't start until December. They've already put that out there. Like I said, they're going to have a 3-week training camp. If there's a COVID, they're going to have like most massive COVID testing for every player. If one player gets tested positive, they're just going to quarantine them and then test everybody else around them like rigorously to make sure that they didn't contract it. They're not going to shut down the entire league if it's one player tests positive for it.
They're just going to take the preventative measures.
Yeah, they're just going to like basically put him on the DL.
Gotcha.
And they're looking at maybe doing a play-in tournament for a couple of teams that are on the bubble because they had to do this hiatus in the middle of the season.
Right, and I was going to ask you about that because there's been a lot of chatter for weeks now about, do you just go right to the playoffs, but you could potentially screw some teams out of a playoff opportunity. Most of the teams have played the same amount of games. There's a couple of discrepancies there. So what do you do, honestly?
Yeah, so I mean, they're gonna finish the season. That's what they want to do. They're like, we're going to finish the regular season, play all the games. But they're toying around with the idea of having a couple of teams that are like in that 8-9 bubble, that want to have like play in because we had this break, so a lot of other teams could rest, and it's not like a true season. They may also I just lost my train of thought. So they're going to,
they're talking about playoffs.
So the playoffs are still going to be. They will still want to do 7-game series for the playoffs. They still want to do all of that, and for each round. They don't want to shortchange anything. But at this point, they're not telling players a specific date, but they're at this point planning for June to like end of May, beginning of June to start. They've already opened up certain team facilities for players to go and work out on a schedule, and which is the first step. But then they're going to start doing training camp. They said about a 3-week training camp, and then they're going to start games. So we should hopefully look for games to start mid to end June, with the season probably finishing in August, which would be pretty cool.
That's awesome.
That was basically the conference call. There's a lot of logistic stuff that has to get approved by the Players Association. So they had this. David Stern had this conference call to basically say everything that they're planning, and then the NFL, or not the NFL, the NBA Players Association will go back and look at it all and vote on it. They also had they have an audio on ESPN of the entire conference call where they got to ask a lot of questions and basically, get more detail as to like what's going on here.
So they really are trying to figure this out.
Yeah, they're
not
going to
speculation anymore. They're at the point now where it's like, it's go time. We need to do something here.
Yeah. So
gotcha.
So good news with that coming back.
Sure.
So
tell me about.
we had opening day.
Yeah, man.
Who would have thought? We had opening day, the Korean Baseball League, which is on ESPN. You can watch it. It's at 4 and 5 and 6 a.m. in the morning. So if you want to get up real early and watch the Korean Baseball League play, they're playing without fans. Yeah, or if you didn't go to sleep and you're still playing video games. I've been there, but
been there, done that.
Yeah, so it gives a baseball framework to return. It's one of the first major sports to come back, and it seems to be pretty successful. They're playing, like I said, they're playing without fans, which is interesting. I haven't watched any games, honestly. I have no desire to watch any of the games. That's just personally to me. I know a lot of people that have watched the games, so I don't know. It's good. I was listening to the radio because I think they had opening day on Tuesday. Listening to the radio, and they were like, "Yeah, we have opening day tomorrow." And I got really confused, and they're like, "Yeah, it's the Korean Baseball League." And
even in Korea, it's called opening day. Fantastic.
Yeah. So it was like,
keep the tradition alive.
Yeah, this is interesting. So it's good. Again, things are starting to open them back up. I believe baseball is looking for after July 4th to start back up.
Anything baseball, anything.
Yeah, they're playing around with a lot of things. They might do the same thing that the NBA. I think the NBA is going to be the first league that comes back, and then everyone's going to kind of follow suit after the NBA.
I haven't really, on a side note, I really haven't heard too much about the NHL. Like, nothing's really pinged my news about here's what's being discussed or what's going on. Like, I'm gonna have to dig down for that because NHL is the other league that did not finish its season.
Well, yeah, I've heard a few things. I've heard that but it's basically been the same thing that the NBA is. I think the NHL is kind of at this point like, we're just gonna wait to see what the NBA does because they use the same
facilities,
arenas for most of the stuff. So they have to, like, if the NBA is going to do Orlando and Las Vegas, then NHL might have to do Tampa Bay and I don't know, San Jose. Like they might have to do similar locations but different locations. So like the NHL is kind of like, yeah, we know the NBA makes more money than us, so we're kind of like in a holding pattern,
yielding to them first. Let them figure
we're gonna
it
see
out
what they
and
do.
Go for it. Right.
Yeah, and we're gonna try to wait and see. So that's why you really don't hear much about it, because they're kind of in the back burner. But as soon as the NBA puts out everything that they need to do, you're gonna see the NHL come right after it.
Oh yeah. So I saw here the MLB draft, they're shortening it from 40 rounds to 5 rounds. Now, first of all, 7 rounds of a football draft is like pulling teeth. 40 rounds normally in the baseball draft. 40. Holy moly. Like 5 rounds, I'm cool with that.
Recapping that draft, 40-round draft. Yeah, I saw that. I don't know if that's permanent or that's just what they're going to do in the interim, like the short term. I mean, MLB definitely has like minor leagues, and there's other grapefruit leagues that they have. Like, there's so many baseball leagues out there that I can see 40 rounds, but you're obviously what you're getting. What you're getting in the 40th round is not going to be somebody that's going to be playing, baseball for you at the major league level. It's going to be more
single A league, New York.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the 40th draft pick of a team, you're lucky if you're getting a single A at that point. So
yeah, I mean, you know what though, but to each his own. If if I were to play ball and I was drafted anywhere in the 40 rounds to say, hey, I have the opportunity to play minor league and maybe get called to the major league is still an achievement. I don't want to discount that for these guys. But when I looked at it, it just, nobody really talks about the major league draft. It's always about the NBA draft, the NFL draft. Nobody really talks about hockey or baseball. And for all the years I followed baseball, I never really thought about how long the draft was. And just when I read it, I'm like, 40 rounds. My God.
I think that has a lot to do with how college how the college sports are watched. Not a lot of people watch college hockey or college baseball. Most people watch college basketball or college football. Those are your two big. So a lot of people are going to watch the draft because of that. So I think that has a lot to do with it. As far as why nobody watches the draft, because it's like, hey, this person's going first, and everyone's like Googling that name, like, who is this person?
Yeah, who the heck?
Or anything. Yeah, like, you have no idea. I know, like, when like my team's pick for those drafts, I literally just go in and I read the recap. I'm like, is this a good player? Is it a good pick? What do the experts say, quote unquote? And it's like, oh, they said it's a great pick. I'm like, all right, cool. We'll see him in like 4 years when he comes up from the minors. Like, so
great.
Like it doesn't hit me right away.
Right.
But
it is what it is.
It is what it is. I like I said, I don't know if that's going to be permanent or it's just like an interim for your next few years or next year or something.
From what I understand, they cut it down from 40 rounds to 5, obviously because it'll be a shortened baseball season. And then next season they will also have a shortened draft, but they'll be shortened down to 20 rounds.
Okay.
Yeah. So probably a lot of it has to do with too is the fact that a lot of college sports got cut short. So the guys you're prospecting, you had to stop prospecting them. They weren't playing.
Yeah, it's true.
So that's probably the reason for the shorter rounds.
I didn't think
we'll see how it turns out. So what you got for me this week in random news? So
one of the things I want to say is congratulations to Alex Morgan. She is a women's soccer player. She had her first child. She had a daughter this week. So congratulations to her. I wanted to give a shout out. Soccer's close to my heart, and she's one of the better players on the team. She's a striker. So for those that don't know soccer, they play up top, and they're the ones that score most of the goals. So she's one of the premier players there. So kudos to her for having her first child.
Congratulations.
Next thing we got here, Don, I'm going to let you talk a lot about this because this is some more up your alley. So the Shoeless Joe Jackson card was sold this week for $492,000, which I'm gonna say honestly for me is ridiculous amount of money for a baseball card. I collected cards when I was a kid, but
yeah,
$492,000 for one card is mind blowing.
So what you need to understand, I mean, for anybody that's diehard baseball and knows their baseball history. I mean, Shoeless Joe, not enough caffeine today, ranks right up there with the all-time greats, the early pioneers of baseball. Now, the $492,000 is not the most ever paid for a baseball card. Now, when you were a kid collecting, I was a kid collecting. At that time, cards were mass-produced. You had all sorts of different stuff. It was a billion-dollar business. What makes these older cards from 1910 or the turn of the 20th, whatever, so expensive, A, they're extremely hard to find. So even your common no-name players will fetch a decent sum because somebody's trying to build a set. The early baseball cards, they weren't made by like Topps or Bowman or Upper Decker companies you're familiar with today. These cards usually came like in a pack of chewing tobacco. So they were called tobacco cards. What makes them rare is it was a giveaway that most people are just like, oh, a baseball card. And just like kids growing up, you had a card, you would tape it to a wall, it would end up in the spokes of your bicycle, whatever the case. So very, especially from it being that old, nobody really understood the relevance of the baseball cards. It was just a promotion. Baseball was still in its infancy. So nobody really understood what this would actually become. So the card altogether, that makes the cards extremely rare. So to get your big names of the day, Cy Young, Ty Cobb, going back a little bit to the 20s and 30s, anything with Babe Ruth on it, whatnot, the name players of the day. To have those cards, it is a holy grail. It's luck. Now, the value of the card at 492,000 is based on the condition of the card. Cards now and just about anything that is a collectible gets graded on a scale of 0 to 10. So this card on a 0 to 10, 10 being mint, perfect condition, no damage, it's perfectly centered. There's nothing wrong with this card. This card, I believe, was rated at a 3.5. So a 3.5, it's usually worn, rounded corners or missing corners. Some of them, the pictures might be distorted and whatnot. So to give you an idea, this wasn't even a mint card, and it sold for 492,000.
Wow.
Yeah, it's an impressive find. I've been in card collecting and collectibles in general since my early youth, since I was like 5. I'm 42 now, and I've gone through the changes, but I've understood the significance of these older cards. Just to let you know, to wrap up this piece here, 492 is a heck of a price for a card, but when you consider the history and the rarity of the card to diehard collectors, that's actually not a bad price. The most valued card is a Honus Wagner card. It's from what they call a T206 series, and that sold last year for $1.3 million. And for T206 cards and the Honus Wagner card are the holy grail. That is every collection that you have or things that you collect, there's that one key piece in your collection. For any sports card collector that can have the money or come across a find in an antique store looking through an old lunchbox or whatever, the T206, the Honus Wagner, is the holy grail. So there you go. A little much random topic and a little elaborating on the sports card market.
Yeah, that was well done. Well done. I don't know that much about cards. I collected them when I was a kid, and then now they're sitting in a shoebox somewhere in my house. So,
yeah. Well, most of that stuff from that decade's good for fire starters.
yeah.
What else you got for me, man?
Yep. So we had the UFC last night. UFC 249 that was originally scheduled on April 18th. That got postponed. It's probably the first. I don't want to say major, but it's probably the first sport event to come back since the quarantine. It went over really well. There was the one guy, Ronaldo Souza, that tested positive right before when he got here to Jackson, Florida. They quickly quarantined him, and he was pulled from the event. But other than that, they had a full card go. I didn't watch the actual event. I'll be honest. UFC is not one of those sports that really interests me or that I understand.
Not your cup of tea?
I just don't understand a lot of the holds and stuff they do it. Like I see some other guy beat the hell out of another guy. It's kind of like boxing. Like there's so much more intricate to it that if I know I probably would appreciate it more. Yeah. But I just know one dude.
Not my thing either. No worries.
So, one of the major matches was a championship match. It was Henry. I'm gonna try to get this name right. Cejudo. I said that wrong. Absolutely said that wrong. I listened to it before I came on, and I still butchered it. Versus Dominic Cruz. He ended up winning, and then afterwards, he's a 33-year-old. He just basically said, "I'm done," and retired. So if you don't know much about UFC, Dana White is the founder owner of UFC. UFC is the big fighting like the MLB. It's like the big fighting corporation that does all the caged arenas and the octagons and stuff like that. And he basically just walked away. I guess when you're up on top and you don't feel like you had to prove anything else, you walk away. UFC has been criticized by a lot because they have kind of like a WWE flavor to it, because they do a lot of things to like promote ratings, and a lot of the things that they do is to like build drama. Like I remember like last year they had like Brock Lesnar walk into the octagon and like challenge one of the UFC fighters, but I don't think he ever fought him. And it was like just basically like entertainment drama to boost ratings. So there's a lot of people out there that think he retired, but not really. He's just trying to like boost his own ratings. Say like, oh, I came out of retirement for this match, for his next match or whatever. But yeah, it was kind of a surprise move. He's 33. Usually you don't have a 33-year-old who just goes, I'm done with the sport and then retires. So that was kind of like the one of the like main highlights of it. You can definitely go on and read more about it. I'd love to give like a whole entire synopsis on it, but again, I don't understand a lot of the holds and a lot of the different things, so I would not do it justice and probably butcher it. And I know my limitations on that kind of stuff, so I butchered.
I will interject here. I will interject here for any athlete who decides he's done it all, been there, done that, and wants to retire on top. Props to you, man. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can go out as champion, there's no better way to go out. And then what else happened this week? They did put a little burp on ESPN about it. I also listened to it on Philadelphia's radio stations, but it's the 18-year reunion of Iverson's practice rant. So if you haven't heard it, I'm sure
we're talking about practice.
Yeah, I'm sure people have had that. So they put a little article on ESPN about it, and there's a lot of people that don't know the whole backstory to everything that happened with it. I'm not going to go all into detail, but basically,
look it up online. It's great.
Yeah, it's basically. I mean, look at it, listen to it. It's Iverson is Allen Iverson is a Philadelphia 76er basketball player who was doing his end of year press conference, and the media was kind of hounding him about his play this year and how whether he liked practice or not, and he just got fed up with the media. He was dealing with a lot of personal issues over the year, as well as other issues with the media, and basically reacted by going on this, I think it was like a 15-minute rant of him saying, why are you guys asking me about practice? We should be talking about the game. Like, the game's more important than what happens in practice.
We ain't talking about the game. We talking about practice.
Yeah, there's a lot of cuts of it that you can definitely find online. It's if you're interested, definitely listen to it. He's right in some of the things. Is like they're drilling him about practicing, which practicing is important, but they should be really talking about the game. And he felt like the media was slighting him because he puts all his effort into the game, and they're like almost attacking him. Like I said, there's a lot of backstory with it. He was dealing with a lot of personal issues at the time when it came out. And that's what like fueled the fire for it. You can talk to different people who have different opinions on it, but it was definitely one of the more memorable events that had happened in players' tenure on it.
Years ago. Already, yeah, 18 years. God, it was like yesterday.
I know, it's crazy. It's
wow.
Crazy.
Wow. What else you got for us?
So I believe Tim posted this up on Discord, and I had to look it up. So Bundesliga, which if you guys don't know, is the German football league, or soccer as we call it here in the States.
Call it proper, and we're going to call it football to be respectful to the world.
I want to clarify. I don't want people getting the wrong. There's a German NFL out there. There's not. It's a German soccer league, but they call it football. It's going to be they're starting back up on May 16th. They hope to finish their season by June 30th. They were almost done their season before this whole pandemic happened. So it's going to be good that they can.
So they want to finish their season.
Yeah, they're going to get they're projected to finish their season by June 30th, which again, it goes along with a lot of the storylines that we said. There's a lot more sports that are coming back, and we didn't want to like beat a dead horse by giving you guys every single sport that's coming back, because they're all coming back at some point. But these are some of the things we just wanted to throw in. Like, this one's coming back. These are more recent ones that are coming back, or the ones that are coming back in the near future. With that, so Bundesliga is coming back. They're hoping to finish their season by the end of June. And yeah, so that'll look forward to that this week. So that's the first international, like European international, because Germany was one of those states that, or one of those countries that was also under a big, huge quarantine, like around Italy and France and like the U.S. So
In
they're
general,
bringing
had
back,
a rough time of it.
yeah. So they're bringing back their league, which is going to be, again, it's going to give the U.S. and other sports a, hey, what did they do good? What did they do bad? What works? What doesn't work? How can we evolve this? And it's definitely, looking forward and looking at the light at the end of the tunnel.
I think I'm gonna catch a few matches myself. Tim was talking about it, and I need to learn a little more about the game. Anyways, it's probably a good way to start.
Yeah. I mean, if you have any question, or if anybody out there has questions about soccer and how it's played or anything like that, I played it for all the way through college. So I know a lot about the sport. I watched it. I've actually watched it live internationally. I went to the World Cup. So it's definitely, I know a lot about it. I know a lot about the players. I can tell you which matches are going to be good, which are not. So, hit me up on our chat or email me, and, we'll go from there.
And guess what? It is once again that time of the show. It's time.
It's time for Chip's Chumps. Bad plays, bad players, awful calls, poor sportsmanship. The worst of the week with Chip's Chumps.
All right, guys, it's again that time of the podcast for us to go into Chip's Chumps. So we're going to start out with
number 5,
which I give to the Golden State Warriors. So if you haven't heard this, the Golden State Warriors came out a few weeks ago saying, or Steve Kerr came out a few weeks ago saying that, hey, we've treated this quarantine like the off season. And they came out earlier today that said, hey, they're going to be good sports in with this revamping of the season. I gave them number 5 because even though you're the last team, it's sports. Be competitive, still compete. Don't throw away at all. Saying that you're going to be big sports is basically, or good sports about it is basically saying, we don't really care. We're just going to show up for the games and just do what we're told to do. So you guys are morons.
number 4,
I'm giving it to the IOC is the next one. The IOC is the International Olympic Committee. So Bryce Harper came out this week and went to the media because the IOC is keeping major leaguers out of the Olympics. So Major League Baseball players are not going to be in the next Olympics, which it's the first time the Olympics were back there since 2008. Which, why would you not in today's world have professional athletes playing in the Olympics? So this is more the American IOC. I shouldn't say I should not have said the IOC because that's the international, but it's the Americans IOC that's keeping them out of the Olympics, that they're not going to include Major League Baseball players when other countries are. So you're just going to have college players going to play? That's stupid. So you guys are morons.
number 3,
Next one on the list is going to be the NBA. So the NBA came out with they're going to, allow teams to test their players for coronavirus. I find that highly, highly stupid for one particular reason. Who says that they will allow teams to test for this virus? They shouldn't allow them to do anything with this virus. They should just do it. Like, you shouldn't have rules over whether you can or can't test people. It's just test them. Like, that's the safest way to go about it, to sit there and be like, it's all right, we're going to allow you to do something that you should already do, is just mind-blowing. Like, that's one entity trying to control too much. Like, every team should just test their players no matter what, test their facilities no matter what. They shouldn't need allowance from the NBA to say, like, okay, we'll let you. What were they going to do? Not let them do it? And then see this pandemic come back or shut down again because everybody's getting coronavirus? That's just stupid. Like, that was just dumb. So the NBA, you guys are morons.
number 2,
So the second one, I got to give it to ESPN. This was another virtual happenstance or mistake. They had an interview with Trevor Bauer, who is a baseball player, who was on the phone, and they forgot to take his phone number off of the screen as he's doing a virtual interview. So Trevor Bauer didn't realize it. So he got a whole bunch of phone calls and voicemails from a lot of people that he had no idea who it was. Then he rewatched the video and saw that they had actually put his phone number out to the national public. So if you want to go ahead and watch the video and you want to call Trevor Bauer, his number's there. Now, he did do something that was really cool. He said that he's going to do a giveaway for people that call him and leave a interesting voicemail. He's going to give some type of giveaway, and he basically called it a big screw up by ESPN for doing that. So he's trying to put a positive spin on it, and it's just it's dumb. Like, we're in a world where we're going virtual, and you've been going virtual for six weeks or however long, and you're as big as ESPN, and someone just can't simply take off a phone number. Like, that's just somebody's gonna get fired over that, because that's just stupid. So ESPN, you are a moron. And
Number 1.
on the list, I'm giving it to the UFC referees. So like I said earlier, we had the UFC 249 last night, and going back on the retirement match is what I'm going to call it, because the gentleman retired after the match. They were fighting, and it only went 2 rounds. And the reason it only went 2 rounds is because in the second round, the winner, who was, again, I'm not going to say his name because I'm going to butcher it. I'm calling Henry C because I can't say his last name, but Henry C.
Try it anyways.
Not trying it. I'll call it Henry C. He got into it. He got into it with him. He hit him with a knee and then took about 10 shots on him. And then the ref called the match and TKO'd the other guy. Now, normally in a TKO, the guy's unresponsive or he's not being able to defend himself and he's going to hurt himself. In this one, the dude was standing up, completely responsive. As soon as they called the match, he started yelling at the referee, yelling at Dana White, who again is the commissioner or owner of the UFC, and basically like, what the hell are you calling the match for? Like, I was blocking his punches. They said it was a controversial call. It's one of those things that was one of the blemishes on the UFC fight. Like I don't know. I've never seen anybody be knocked out and still be standing and being able to move and yell and scream. Like, I get it if he was like cut or he was like bleeding or there was something gushing out of his head or something like that, and they had to stop the fight. But they stopped the fight because the dude was trying to block his blows that he was doing. And there's no, he probably would have ended up losing the fight anyways because of how the match is going. But still, let them fight. So the UFC referees, you guys are morons. So that's Chips Chumps.
Chips Chumps. Now, were you I know you've had the week to kind of relax a little bit and take in a little sun and what have you, but aside from the UFC referees, you managed to tag entire organizations. How PO'd were you when you were writing this list?
I tried to actually be pretty like calm when I was writing this list, but everything I kept reading just kept getting more and more like you like I can understand, like, when you take each one, I like looking at the list as a total. Yes, there's all these organizations on there and it looks bad, but when you take each individual story, they are worth being on that because they just did some stupid stuff or they've made some stupid decisions. You know, I don't have much to go on. Like, there's not really plays or there was no really person this week. It was just like, hey, these guys just decided to do this and it's stupid. They're dumb. Like they're just made bad decisions. So, be smart. That's all I can say. Don't make dumb decisions.
It's the final buzzer. The last moments of the show.
Okay, here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, y'all heard it. It's the final buzzer. And before we go over the movie of the week, Chip, show number 4. It's been a month now, and we continue to get feedback on Discord. And it looks like we're getting a couple more followers on Twitter. I've been spreading the word around to family, friends, and coworkers. I'm sure you've been doing the same.
Yep.
So 4 shows in, I think it's coming together here. What do you think? We'll kind of give each other a tap on the back, pat on the back here, and go, you know what? So far, good job. What do you say?
Yeah, I think it's been good. We're getting better at doing the show. We're being more concise and getting the rhythm of it. I think that as we get more into less like newsworthy stuff, and we get more into like recapping great games and all that kind of stuff, I think that's really what's gonna make the show a lot more interesting than more interesting than it already is. But at this point, all we got to go off of is news. So we'll I think it's all coming together and going really well.
I would like to thank everybody so far for any feedback you've given us, either in person or on the various channels that we can be found on. Chip and I are taking everything that we get to heart. Everything I'd like to say, I guess, I can't speak for you, but everything that I've gotten so far has been positive. Everybody seems to be enjoying themselves so far, and we're just glad to be doing it and glad everybody's having a good time with it so far.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I did want to mention, we didn't go over it yet. And I don't know if I'm getting ahead of you or not, but before we sign off, I did want to do the movie of the week for this week. So the movie of the week that I had picked was Happy Gilmore.
Yes.
It is a favorite by many people. It is a Adam Sandler original, as I like to say.
Absolutely.
Basically, it's almost like a golf parody. It's hilarious. It's one of my favorite, absolute favorite sports movies. If you haven't seen it yet, I highly suggest it. If you watch one sport movie,
you haven't seen it yet, what is wrong with you? That's my question. You don't have a sense of humor. I'm sorry. I don't mean to alienate the audience. What is wrong with you? Go ahead.
There's a lot of really funny quotes that come off of it. So I highly suggest you watch it and enjoy it. It's one of Adam Sandler's, like, he hasn't done many funny films recently, but this is one of his original ones that were absolutely hilarious. So please definitely go out there and check it out. It was a 1996 film, and basically it's about, again, it's about a hockey player who can't skate, who turns into a golfer and has to win the PGA Tour to save his house from or rebuy the house that his grandfather built for his grandmother. So there's some sentimental value to it, but it's an early Adam Sandler film, so it's going to be good just because of that.
I will watch that as many times as I possibly can. For me, the movie never gets old. Anytime you need a good laugh, this is definitely a movie to watch. 100%.
Yeah, I'm not the best person to watch it with because I pretty much know every line to the film. So
same here.
It's hard for me to say them out loud when I watch it. So
are you too good for your home? Answer me.
You're gonna die, clown.
I love that one.
So
awesome. So there we go, everybody. Happy Gilmore, movie of the week. Let us know what you think. As always, if you, Chip, I'm going to do this for you because you didn't do it before. If anybody has an issue with Chip's Chumps for the week, isn't happy with the order, feels somebody needs to be removed from the list or added to the list, Chip will make sure he gets the list up on Twitter. Tell us what you think. There you go, bud. I got you covered.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, man. You got anything else for the listeners out there?
Nope. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
A man of a few words. Like you said, everybody, thanks for listening. Be safe out there, and we'll talk to you next week. We're out.
You've been listening to Sportscasters Anonymous. Your opinion may differ, but that doesn't mean you're right. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week. We hope you were intrigued or at least entertained. You can find the podcast on all the major networks. Find us on Discord and Patreon at Random Chatter. Hook up on the website at randomchatter.com and browse through the merchandise at randomchatter.com/store. We'll see you next time. This is Sportscasters Anonymous. Signing off.